until 2024, where he became site manager of Witley Court and Gardens for English Heritage. No doubt, he is going to speak on a day at Witley Court and Gardens, English Heritage, the real day-to-day life of a site manager, which I think he is going to speak from a insider's view of his experience. So we are very glad to have you here amongst us, and we would like to also know your experience about heritage and the management of the heritage site, which we absolutely have no idea about, being an insider in that sense. Welcome, and please.
Thank you very much, Professor Ray. Thank you very much, Asmita, for welcoming me today. As I said, due to constraints at work, the beauty of being a site manager, people called in sick, so I need to split this workshop into 2 sessions. Today I'll do the first part, and then it will be the base for one where I would like to share exercises with those attending, and then you can experience firsthand what it actually means to be a site manager, because there is a major difference between what we study at uni and when you walk into the job. It's very much different. It's a lot less theoretical and a lot more practical. So if everybody can hear me, I'm going to start with sharing the presentation. Just 1 second.
Yes, you are absolutely audible.
Perfect. Thank you. Right. If everybody sees this, I'm going to go to the second slide. So to give you an oversight of what it is like in the United Kingdom, we have 3 main ways to manage heritage sites. One, if it is an independent site or standalone, so they run independently from any sort of organization or the government. And I'll just present briefly a case of Witley Castle, which is a property nearby where I work. Then there is the independent network. So these are properties that are linked to one another through a network like English Heritage or National Trust for Scotland. So if you become a member at one property, then you can visit all the others for free. And then there is the governmental bodies, such as Historic Environment Scotland in Scotland, where a number of properties are together. And just as an example, because it's a very famous one, I thought I'd mention Edinburgh Castle, because it's one of those that you can visit if you join this governmental body. So close by to me is Witley Castle Trust. It's a property that was built in the first place in 1855 AD, but as a bishop manor, and then it was fortified because of wars at that time in England, and then it was destroyed in 1648 during a civil war in England between royalists and parliamentarists. And then it was restored in 1675 as a bishop manor, and it remained the house of the bishop of the area until 2007, when it was sold and it was purchased by this independent and standalone trust called the Witley Castle. Now, in order for them to survive, they rely entirely on visitors coming to them, visiting the place, going to the tea room, to the shop, and even joining as members. But because they are alone, they don't get the support that a property like mine, Witley Court and Gardens, receives by being part of a wider organization where there is 400 sites that people can go to. English Heritage, the example that I'm bringing in you today is Witley Court. So you can see the photo. That's a beautiful photo after about 30 years of work to bring back to life the gardens. The ruins were damaged in 1937 by a fire, and they're not going to be rebuilt. That's not part of the plan. They live in the landscape as ruins and a little bit romantic ruins. But originally, from the 30th century, there was a house, a smaller version of what you see in the photo, a much smaller one, owned by Robert Russell. And then it got turned into a slightly bigger house in 1624. And then it got majorly developed because the new owner, Sir William Russell, had a lot more money available. So he managed to turn it into sort of the shape that you see in the photo now. Unfortunately, there was a civil war in 1650s, and although the owner survived, the house encountered some problems, but they managed to retain the land and the house, even though they were on the losing side. It was then sold in 1655 to Thomas Foley, and he was a lord that was very famous for in the nail making industry. So he was making nails. That's how he made his money, and also by owning some of the coal mines in our region. And he had a lot of money available, so he managed to refurbish further the house. And then in 1572, the family built the church next door. So just going back, if you see the mouse, there is a church at the back here. You can just about see it. It's independent from the court, and that's how it survived the fire in 1937 and all the various phases of decay in the 20th century, because it was built as a church for the community and not as a chapel. They were not able to sell it in 1937. William Ward purchased the house in 1837, and he brought back more money into the property, and that's the last phase of renovation of Witley Court and Gardens. It's the Victorian time, so when Victoria and Albert were Queen and King of England. And he also called one of the most famous garden landscape, William Nashfield, to design the garden that you see today. So today we're working to bring it back to life and to restore to its Victorian beauty using the plants that were chosen back then. And the last bit that we need to bring back to life is these quadrants around the formal garden, around the fountain of Perseus and Andromeda, which you see a bigger photo next to it. And that was the time when it was built, the Perseus and Andromeda fountain. It's one of the main features of the property, and it competes with other fountains in Europe, such as the fountain in Rome called Trevi. In 1937, there was a fire or during the night between the 7th and the 8th of September, and it damaged the east wing, so this side here. The majority of the house was actually preserved, but unfortunately, because the owner of the house had underinsured the house, when he went to claim money to the insurance company, they weren't able to pay for the refurbishment. So he had to sell the house to an antiquarian, who then sold everything of value within the property. So you see the majority of the furniture, paintings, everything was taken out because the fire was contained, and they got sold by the new owner. In 1950s, a scrapyard owner purchased the property and tried to take down the columns of the facade with tractors and chains, but he failed, and that's why they're still there. Then in 1970, the Department of Environment in England started taking care of this property, and that's when they installed concrete to keep the towers up and the rest of the building. In 1984, English Heritage, so the organization I worked for, was created to start looking after heritage monuments such as this one. And then in the 1990s, conservation work started to bring back to life the formal garden and to sort of maintain the ruins so they wouldn't decay any further. And to give you the example of a network property, so in this case for the government, I brought Edinburgh Castle because it's a very famous and popular one. So built in the 11th century with previous presences, it was always the royal castle for those ruling Scotland until the Scots became completely absorbed within the United Kingdom. And then from the 17th century, it became a military garrison, and it retains that interest and that vibe these days, to the point that they made with a show that it's very famous, and it started in 1949. So I don't know if any of you have been to Edinburgh, but if you go to Edinburgh, pardon me, if you go to Edinburgh in August, there is something they call the military tattoo. So that's a big military parade with fireworks and everything, and it gathers hundreds of people every night, night from the beginning of August until the end of August. Now, this is not only beautiful and wonderful and a way to show the importance of this place as a military station, but also it's a way to gather interest and to get more people to attend, because you need to remember to maintain these places, it costs a lot of money. And creating an event that is now so popular that people come from all over the world and they pay a lot of money to attend, they are able to maintain the site and also to pay for the event itself. And it's something that it never gets old and people love to go there. And every year is slightly different. Now, to go into the technicalities more and the challenges that we have as conservation charities, whether we are standalone, working in a network or part of the government, we all share the need of compliance. So those are the rules that enables us to protect in case of any issues at site. Let's say there is somebody that is tripping, falling, or any of those normal risks that you encounter. By having what we call risk assessments for each of the problems that we can encounter at site, even simple as using a step ladder for a staff member or volunteer, we need to know how to do it safely, and then we need to share it with our colleagues. If it is, for instance, the use of computers even, or changing a light bulb. I know it sounds sometimes silly, but we're not taking anything for granted, because by not doing any of these risk assessments, we are leaving our charities exposed to potential claims because we have not provided the right information or taken the mitigating steps to reduce the risk to the minimum. So in case of having to dig a hole in the ground because we're doing some investigation at Witley Court, we need to have the necessary steps in place to mitigate the risk of people falling into the hole. So that could go from a signage that says sheer drop to having barriers around it to sort of discourage people to come across. And this is something that all the organizations in this country, they need to do it. If they don't, they are not compliant and they're putting themselves at risk, and also the risk of our visitors or their visitors. So that's something that we share together. So when you see the green in this slide, in the boxes, it means that we're all doing it. When it comes to the commercial side of things, you will see that there is a big discrepancy between the standalone, the network property like Witley, and the government one, so like the one that is within Historic Scotland in the example that I'm providing. So the standalone property is raising every year about £300,000 to maintain the property. Witley Court is part of a network of 400 properties, and that is raising the charity called English Heritage 141 million a year. Historic Scotland, in which that includes also Edinburgh Castle, is raising 66 million pounds a year. Now, the reason why I put it in orange is they're not driven too much to create commercial results, because any shortfall in their income is covered by the government, so by the taxes that people in Scotland pay. This is something that English Heritage doesn't have anymore. 10 years ago, we were like Historic Scotland, and we would have received support from the government. But in 2014, 2015, we became an independent charity. So we're now relying entirely on the income we generate through retail, the admission ticket, the membership, our catering offer, so like tea rooms, and donations and legacies from visitors. The third row is the income. So as you can see, the income for the standalone property is the same as above. The income for my property is included in that one. The income for Edinburgh Castle, which is the orange one in this case, within the network of Historic Scotland, it's £137 million, but that's because there is support from the government, and they do step in significantly to help them. I do apologize. I'm the duty manager today, so I need to have the radio on in case of an emergency. The expenditure varies, so we need to cover all the expenditures ourselves. So when it comes to the standalone property of Hanbury Castle, that's what they spend, £378,000. Now you see they spend more than what they earn, so they need to work really hard to at least try to break even or find alternative funding. It could be grants or government support, which they haven't received. They haven't received lately in the last 2 years. English Heritage spent £50 million more than what they raised last year. So they took very painful decision of making redundancies and closing some of the sites or opening them less to save money. And that's what happens when you're an independent charity. You entirely rely on your own energies and resources. When it comes to the expenditures for Historic Scotland, you can see that it's lower, but do remember part of the expenses are also covered by the government. And that's why it looks like there is a big profit of £8 million. It's because they received support. Now, the next row is the government aid. So the standalone one is variable, but as I said, in the last 2 years, Hanbury Castle have not received anything. And then we have not received anything either as English Heritage. But look at how much support Historic Scotland received from the Scottish government. That's £59 million last year. The fundraising is currently an information that was not available at Hanbury Castle, but I'm sure they're doing it. It's just they couldn't find evidence of them raising money for charitable purposes. Whereas we, as English Heritage, we are raising £7.5 million a year through fundraising. So that's people donating money to us, legacies or will. And then the government body that I presented is raising between £500,000 and £1,000 and £1 million. So again, you see the difference. English Heritage is really much driven to raise as much money as possible because we rely entirely on our own strength. We're all trying to be environmentally sustainable, which means we're trying to take necessary steps to mitigate the impact of carbon emission and how much paper we use, electricity, how many trees we cut, and all of that. And we try to be as good as possibly we can. Conservation, it's part of everybody's job. So no matter whether there is a standalone organization, it's part of a network, or part of the government, we all have to preserve and protect the heritage site we look after. That's part of our duty of care. The conservation of upkeep, it's how much money are invested to preserve a site. Now, again, Hanbury Castle didn't have that information available. I'm sure they are doing some work, but I couldn't find a data. For us, it's in the order of millions of pounds, the same as with the government. But we are challenged by the difficult environmental conditions and economical condition of United Kingdom. There is less capital available for people to spend at our sites, which has a knock-on effect on how much we can spend to preserve the site. So they are being prioritized based on urgency. A site like ours doesn't have a great priority of urgency because it's stable. It's been stabilized in the 70s and maintained throughout the time. But sometimes things change, and that's when they need to be looked after. So in our case, we had a problem during October 2024 at Witley Court. We have a dam. So we have a lake that is being contained by a wall. That wall had a problem, and we had to close the site for about 6 months. Now, in order to repair it, English Heritage is looking for funding outside what they normally generate in the £141 million that I mentioned earlier, because it's a very expensive job. And there is funding available, and there is a team of colleagues in head office that is trying to gather the resources to carry out the job. We have 3 years from January 2025 to deliver this job, the full repair. So at the moment we have done the temporary repair. In terms of staffing, you can see again the differences between a standalone property, Hanbury Castle. It's got only 20 staff members. Our organization, the English Heritage, has got 4,922 members of staff that are working. Now it's been reduced by 10%, so we're looking at 4,700 roughly, but still a very significant number of people working either full-time or part-time. And for the government body, we have 1,516 members of staff working. Again, you notice a difference in the volunteers. We all have volunteers, but Hanbury Castle has got a ratio of 1 volunteer every 4 volunteers every staff member, given or taken, or 1:2, depends on which number. I found 48 volunteers active, and on the official website of the government, where all the charities need to provide relevant information, it says it's got 144. One way or another, they got a good ratio of volunteers versus staff. If you look at the network property, so that's English Heritage, we have 4,922 staff, but less than half of that number, or just about half of that number, as volunteers. So we are heavily relying on staff that we pay, and we don't have that many volunteers, which is the opposite of the standalone property. They wouldn't be able to afford to pay 48 staff members and have only 20 volunteers. That's how they can manage to carry on doing their work. And the same applies to the government organization, Historic Scotland. That's even a worse ratio. So they got 1,516 staff members, and they only have 344 volunteers active in 2024. So 1 in 5, basically. Whereas with us, it's about 1 in 2. But ideally, we would want to have at least 1 in 1 at English Heritage, or even 1 staff member and 2 volunteers. That would be an amazing. Can you imagine how much work can be done, how many more visitors we can welcome, and the conservation can be boosted? That can help us raise more money. There is a lot of benefit of having more volunteers. We're not asking to have less staff members. We want to keep that number or grow it, the number of people that work for English Heritage. But by having twice as many volunteers, we will be able to do a much better warm welcome, give much more better warm welcome to our visitors, and do a lot more behind the scenes. In terms of membership, that's when somebody joins for a year. You can see again the huge discrepancy between a standalone site that would struggle to sell the membership. So they sold roughly 304 membership last year. They recruited 304 members, and we have sold 1,180,000 memberships. So you can see how much of a difference there is. And then in terms of the governmental body in Scotland, they sold 195,000. So you can see the difference. It's huge. But that's because the standalone property, in order to make them appealing, they need to have a very low price for their membership. And even then, it may not be enough. We have a more expensive membership, but that gives access to 400 properties. And the one for the government, then they're having a little bit less properties, because there is about 100 properties in Scotland they can visit. But at the same time, the fact that they are not recruiting that many members, it's not majorly concerning, because they will get the support from the government to be able to carry on doing their work. You can also see the number of visitors is different. Again, you got only 24,000 visitors recorded last year at Hanbury Castle. As English Heritage Charity, we have 6.1 million visitors in 2024. And Historic Scotland, they had 4.5 million visitors. Now, to give you a point of reference, UK has got over 60 million inhabitants, citizens. You can see that English Heritage receive about 10% of their visit. In Scotland, there is about 5.5–6 million people living in Scotland. So there is a lot more people visiting the sites of Historic Scotland than there is of people in England visiting English Heritage site. And that's something that English Heritage and all the charities in England need to work to get more of the local people to come and visit. We have also events. All of us, all the 3 organizations are always doing events, but not at the same level. And for instance, Witley Court does not have that many events happening at the moment. But Edinburgh Castle will have fantastic time in August because they have the military tattoo, for instance. And Hadbury Castle has got theatrical performances and all sort of things. But being independent, although it has got downfalls and shortfalls because they have less money available and everything, it gives them more agility and freedom to do different things at a faster pace than a property within a network or a property that is part of the government. In terms of marketing, I'm presenting you the numbers of people that are following pages, Facebook pages of each of the three organizations. So in the case of Hanbury Castle, there is 5,200 people that are following the Facebook page of that property. For English Heritage, the main social media Facebook page has got 811,000 followers, and Historic Scotland Facebook page has got 25,000. Again, there is a huge drive by English Heritage to become more present online. And that's where the attention is shifting. People are reading less newspaper, they're watching less television, but they're using a lot more their phones and their laptops and the tablets. And that's where the attention is shifting for English Heritage, also for Historic Scotland and Hanbury Castle. They want to be there and they want to be seen. And then the network partnership is whether these sites are part of a network. So Hanbury Castle is not part of a network, although it is connected to the Worcestershire Museum network. But the only benefit they get is to be promoted on the website, but there isn't like a membership to visit all the museums in the area. So they are missing on that one. We as English Heritage, we are a part of a 400 properties network, plus we have a partnership with the Welsh government, where our members can go in at a reduced price the first year and free of charge the second year if they join with English Heritage. And the same is if they join the governmental body in Wales, then they can come in with the same arrangement at English Heritage. And then the governmental body in Scotland, Historic Scotland, has got a network and also a partnership with us. So our members have access to their site and their members have got access to ours. Now, operation procedures is the last bit in this slide, and that's where if you are a standalone site, you're more flexible. You may not do exactly what a network of properties like mine would do. They may need to do less. I doubt they are doing more than us, because as a very centralized organization, we have staff and colleagues in head office that are helping us to make all our procedures the same. But that means there may be a lot of them and may not all be relevant. So sometimes as a site, I need to say, well, this one is not really relevant because I don't have a mountain to climb, but I do have a lake. And other sites don't have a lake, but do have a mountain. So we need to adjust. And network organizations such as English Heritage, or the governmental body organization that I mentioned today, Historic Scotland, will have that heavy oriented operation procedure standards. Now, the common challenges that we have are the financial sustainability. We all share that problem. We may have different solution to it, but we all share in that problem. So Historic Scotland does have the same problems that we have. Will be helping and making sure that there isn't a risk of redundancies, for instance, and properties are maintained. And if there is a new emergency, it will be quicker for them to step in. We will be able to contain the problem as English Heritage and make it safe, but then we will have to find funding for it and look for it through application of grants and fundraising process. The conservation and conservation costs are common challenges, because being heritage sites, as you also have the same challenges in India, maintaining an historic site or a ruin, it's very expensive because they're no longer alive, they're no longer used in the way they were designed for. So by having a house without a roof, it means that not only the exterior walls are getting damaged by the weather, also the interior ones and the floors and everything else that goes with it. So changing the way we keep the properties means that it costs a lot more to maintain them that way. But also rebuilding a house that has been damaged by a fire may not be cost effective. So it's a matter of balancing. And then you need to also consider that not everybody wants to see a house rebuilt. They may want to experience what happened by seeing the remnants of that property. A lot of castles that we look after as English heritage are in a state of ruin, but that's because they've been there for 1,000 years maybe, and they've gone through different phases of abandonment, being rebuilt, renovated, and then attacked and destroyed and rebuilt. And now we're presenting the last known point of that castle, for instance. So for us, it will be for Witley Court is the 1950s when it got completely abandoned and everything was removed that was of value, marble, as I said, columns, windows, doors. And now we're presenting it as if it was still the 1950s. And it applies to most of the sites that we look after in this country. Rarely you will find that a site that burned down in 1930s will be fully rebuilt. It is different if the site had a major incident in the last 10, 20 years, and the organization may be working to bring it back to life, but it will be a like for like. And so they need to source the materials, the furniture, all of that like for like, so that it needs to be exactly as it was before the problem happened with the fire, for instance. Maintaining staff and volunteer recruitment is also another of the challenges that we have. Because of the nature of the business of heritage, we have less than half of the staff working in English heritage as full-time. So I myself am full-time, and then there is the head gardener and the garden supervisor. The rest of the team, it's all made up of people, staff on various type of contracts, with a minimum of 2 days a week during the summer, and then they switch to 0 hours during the winter when we open less to the public. The gardening team is not full-time, doesn't have all the staff members on full-time, because it just the way it works, there isn't enough budget at the moment to pay for full-time. So there is one colleague that does 4 days, another one does 3, and another one does 3. We are hoping to raise and generate more money so we can offer more hours, because the gardens are huge, and then there is the park, and it requires a lot of work to maintain it. But we also have, so we have 5 members of the team as gardeners, but we have about 15 volunteers working throughout the week to help the gardening team. So you see, it's the good ratio that I was mentioning earlier, 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 paid member of staff, 2 or 3 volunteers. That means that we can look after better our garden. The visitor engagement and reaching new audiences is another major challenge that we have, because people want to be excited, they want to have fun, they want to imagine something, they want to not only come and listen to something, they want to experience something. This is the part where a lot of the investment of all organizations, the 3, the standalone, a network one, or the governmental body, they're putting a lot of resources in it. How do we keep relevant our sites to the young audiences? Now, we got different people coming. There is the culture seekers, there is the family, the adventure seekers. There is all sort of different type of visitors coming to us. Now, our site has got a playground area too, actually, one for toddlers and one for grown-ups. So now we know that we are receiving a lot of families. How do we engage with them? How do we keep them entertained? They will come and join English Heritage because there is the formal garden and the playground, but we're trying to create activities for them. So we have garden games out, we got trails to do around the site, natural trails or trails of the ruins. We're trying to make the place relevant to them, because if we don't, those children that are coming with their parents, the parents are interested in coming here, they know it's a great day out, but the children may not fall in love with the place. And in 20 years' time, when they have the opportunity to join, they're not going to join. That's the moment. That's a very key aspect of heritage management. I wasn't taught about it when I was at uni, but when I came to work, I realized how important it is. It's not only the members that are now 20, 30 years old, or 50 or 60 or 80 years old. It's the very young one. There is a lot of children coming to our sites, and I'm guessing also where you are. But how do you make sure that when they are old enough, they will come and they will enjoy themselves, and then one day they will come with their children? It is our duty, it's our responsibility to make these places relevant to them. And it brings us to the member recruitment and retention challenge. So again, as I just said, how do we keep people that have joined members? We have 400 sites, yes, but they're not all within 5 miles. Some of them are 200-300 miles away. So how do we make those that live locally interested in staying members with us and keep coming back? So we have the gardens get changed twice a year. There is a summer design, there is a winter design. So we change the plants, and there is 7,500 plants removed during the summer and another 7,500 plants planted during the winter. So we work on that. We have the trails around the site. We got competition. There is jousting tournaments at some of the castles that we have as English heritage. And it's all about building the interest around the property and making people feel like they want to come back. Because if they come back, then they will enjoy more and then fall in love with the places more. And then they will bring more family and relatives and friends. And that's building a positive circle. But it's about breaking that negative circle of people not coming because they don't feel engaged or interested, or maybe that's something for others or for rich people. No, heritage is for everyone. It shouldn't be something for just a small elite of people that can afford it. So, for instance, the membership, although it looks a little bit expensive at first, if you think how many places and how many times you can go to a place, if you just have the one next to you, then it becomes more price effective. And that's something that we're trying to do. We want to be inclusive, even in the way we sell the tickets and the membership. So to give you an example that it's very dear to me, we have so if there is a person on a wheelchair, we will offer them to become members, but then they can bring 3 carers or companions to help them enjoy the site. It's a very important thing to do, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to maybe to leave the house because they can't drive, but they have somebody accompanying them to make sure that they enjoy themselves. And that's something that we do to make our site more inclusive. The compliance is a challenge that is common because it's constant. Every day is different, and every day something new may happen, and we need to keep checking. We just can't let it slip. It goes from basic things like checking that there is no problems with the emergency lights. The fire test needs to be checked every week. So we test the call points, and we have a holiday list, so people pay to be in like an Airbnb. We need to check that everything is fine and compliant. All the television are working, the telephone is working. We need to make sure that the doors are closing properly. I know it sounds so simple, but it is part of what we need to do as heritage managers at site. We need to make sure that everything works perfectly like a clock. The risk management is different side by side, but by looking at your site that you manage, you will see what are the most common risks. We got risk assessment, about more than 100 risk assessment for all different things that can happen at site and tasks and situations. Even, for instance, dealing with zootic problems, so like dog poo. How do we manage that? So we are a dog-friendly site. We need to be prepared for us to deal with it. So our team needs to have the right protective equipment, so like gloves, a litter picker, a mask. They need to make sure that they got an apron. So we need to look at all these small things that together make a massive difference. Alone they seems to be small, but if you don't provide the most basic thing of a pair of gloves to deal with rubbish, then you are exposing your team member to a risk that is unnecessary. And that's why risk management is very important. It's complex, and I don't always get it, but there is colleagues that can help me understand it. So one of the things that I learned in the last 10 years is never be afraid of asking a question, because then you can get the answer that you're looking for, or maybe they will point you into the right direction or give you the training. Then you have the press. Now, the press is, there is not good or bad press in my view. You can have problems and they will be picked up immediately, and you go on the national television, national press. But at the end of the day, it's still publicity. But it's how you handle that. And at site, we have limited capacity of handling press. So for instance, as a site manager, if I get a journalist coming in for an interview that is not being organized and pre-agreed with our head office, I need to give them the information of calling our head office and arrange for that to happen. I'm not allowed to talk to the press without prior agreement from my line manager and head office. So those are the things that could make a massive difference, because let's say that I'm new and I've not been trained and I start talking about wonderful things, it could still be a problem to the organization. So we need to be aware of all of these. And then I'm switching now to the day-to-day challenge. So what also next time I'll be talking a lot more. So the day-to-day management is something that we don't explore much, or at least I didn't when I was at uni in Italy or in London. What does that actually mean, running a site on a day-to-day basis? So these are the things that I need to do every day. And if you look on a book, if you find one book that actually mentions all of these and the importance of these, please share it with me on an email. I'll be happy to receive it, because I've been struggling to find the book, and I'm actually trying to write one that synthesizes everything that I'm going through every day, month, and year since I started working in heritage, because those are the things that makes a difference between a good manager and one that needs some support. So you start from the morning. You got the briefing. You need to be aware of what's happening on the day. Have you got anything pre-booked? There are any wedding photography, any groups coming? You got school visit. The team doesn't know that. They don't have access to the information. It's the duty and the responsibility of the site manager to provide that information. And then what are the targets? Because otherwise they don't know whether we're doing well financially, we're selling a lot of guidebooks. All of this information, we are the catalyst. We are providing them. We're also providing them in the way that it doesn't demoralize the team. Because if we have 2 bad months and all I'm saying is we're doing really bad, they're not going to be motivated to do well. So you need to pick what you share with them, so then they are motivated to do. So even though we had maybe 1 month that was not really good, we must have done something really good in that month. So let's focus on that, and do mention that something can be improved, but don't focus on the negativity. The daily checks is something that we do every day, and then we got also weekly checks, monthly check, quarterly checks, annual checks, and so on and so forth. Those are the checks to make sure that the site is safe to open. So we start from when we open the gate, make sure that the gate is working and stays open. We check that the car park doesn't have any litter, any syringes. Not saying that we've got people here with syringes, but we need to look for sharp objects, let's say. Is everything fine in the shop? Does it look damaged? Are the doors opening? Is the alarm okay? Is the fire alarm being tested? Are the toilets ready to go? Did we brush the floor? Did we mop it? All of this needs to be done. Is our playground at Witley Court safe to open for children? So we need to go and visually check that all the installations are fine. The slide, the swing, the rope bridge. And then we walk across the site and we check that the signage is readable. We go to the court, we check that there is no fallen masonry. If there is, then we need to cordon off the area to reduce the risk and report it on the system. You start to see how more detailed the life of a manager is compared to what I started at uni, at least. And then you also need to include the time to restock. So we have a shop and it gets depleted during the day. We may not have time at the end of the day, but we need to try, or at the beginning of the day after the briefing. So we need to always make sure that the shop looks pretty and pristine and it's got what it needs to have. Training is another important part, because nobody knows on the first day everything they want. It takes weeks and months to train a member of staff. That's why it's important to retain them, because we invest 3 to 6 months to train them. And there is post-rotation. So we need to ensure that our team and our staff members and volunteers, they rotate around the site, because if they do the same job all over again, they get bored. And it's our responsibility to make sure that they have fun, because if they do have fun, if they're happy staff members and volunteers, then they do a better job, and they give a better visitor experience and a much warmer welcome to our visitors. And then they don't receive all the internal communication that I receive and my site supervisor, my deputy receive. So it is our job to fill them down and cascade them and share them as relevant. And then they need to learn how to deal with challenging visitors. So it is, again, my responsibility to provide them with training, but also like what we call train the trainer. So I use the briefing to present examples, like one example every week to everybody, and then I move to another one to say, this happened. There was a visitor that refused paying car park. They're adamant they don't want to pay because they feel like it's an absurdity to pay £3.50 for the entire day. They said, never happened before, I disagree. Now, rule says you either pay or you have to remove the car from the car park. Now, this is a challenging situation. I don't want, and the organization doesn't want our staff members to feel threatened or not comfortable in doing their job. So at that point, if they have exhausted all the option to convince them politely, they can call in the duty manager, it could be me today, and we will deal with them. And most likely we will have to accept that it is not worth making somebody so upset and upsetting our staff member over £3.50. Sometimes it's a judgment call. Sometimes they will come around and understand that they made it wrong and they will pay. But at the same time, we need to also protect our team. And that's, again, something that I don't recall being told at uni, but it's something that you learn on the job. It's very important to support your team. And if there is a situation like this, share your experience with them, because they can learn from you and from other people that had other issues. Stock issues is another one. I could carry on for the whole day. Stock issues is when we run low on lines that we sell in the shop, for instance. So what do? We're not going to panic. There is always a solution. There are certain lines that are very hard to get, but you can talk to other managers, or I can talk to my line manager. And because we're in a network of sites, other sites may have what I need, and I may have what they need. So we can do what we call stock transfer. But this is being smart. So this is not letting an issue overcome you and make you feel like, oh my God, I can't do it. It's about finding a way to solve the problem. A manager needs to always find a solution to a problem. And every equation will have a solution, but you need to look hard and you need to listen to other colleagues that have experienced it before and treasure their experiences. And then we have, how do we keep staff, volunteers happy? How do we hit the targets? Targets are not set by myself. They're set centrally by head office, and then we need to deliver them. Sometimes they are unachievable because we just don't get enough visitors, but we can work in what we call the key performance indicators. So like how many guidebooks we sell per visitors. Certain things we have much greater control and we can succeed, but we may not all succeed in the overall income, but we may be able to contain the expenditure. So it's a balance. The same goes with maintenance and conservation. Maintenance is more like we're trying to do cyclical maintenance rather than having to do responsive maintenance. So we try to prevent the problem by maintaining constantly. And the conservation is done by a curatorial team and the conservation team, and we provide them with support and advice because they're not present at every site. They come up for visits, but we can contact them if there is a problem. And the same applies with compliance. At site, there is the knowledge that I have, but I'm not the master of the compliance. There is colleagues in head office that can provide me with support. There is my line manager I can go to for questions. And then we got guidelines, which I can follow, and I follow. The risk management is something that you learn as you work. You may start with a couple of things that you immediately recognize. By the end of a number of seasons working in a place or in multiple places like I did, you will familiarize with the most common risk and then with the site specific risks. And then finding the time to train. That's the one thing that we don't have. I mean, it's always hard to find time to training, but without training, your team is set for a failure. So you need to make time, and I need to make time to give them the opportunity to go online and do all the training they need to do over the course of a period of time. It could be 3 to 6 months or more. And then sitting down myself and actually think about the long-term vision of my site. That's something that in 2 years almost that I've been here, I haven't got around yet, because it's so challenging and it takes time to actually sit there and have basically a huge board, and you need to say, I'm here, the site was there yesterday, where is going to be tomorrow? And it's not something that you do in an hour. It takes time. You need to take notes. You need to plan. You need to consult with colleagues. I need to consult with my line manager. I need to see whether it's within the parameters of our organization, what I would like to do with the site, and then get approval. So it's something that in 2 years here, I've only been doing little parts, but it's not the long-term vision that I would like to do. I mentioned, it was mentioned earlier when I studied in London that I created this concept of compatible tourism. It's basically suggesting that to make heritage sustainable from a financial point of view, it needs to work in a network, but it needs to be a network that is very inclusive. You need to know the local legislation, the local infrastructure to benefit from mass tourism. And all the sites needs to be linked to one another. There are some sites within a network that are bigger than others and some others that are smaller than others. Now, the smaller ones may not survive alone, but because they're part of a network of sites that are bigger and can attract more visitors, they can then benefit from them. But also we need to remember that a site that is the size of Witley Court can take potentially 2,000 people a day. But if it is a site which is a fraction of these, if it was to get 2,000 visitors a day, it may be damaged in a way that it cannot be repaired. So it's not only about the numbers, it's also about the experience people get. For instance, the British Museum before the pandemic was getting, it appeared it was getting 17,000 visitors a day. If you put the same number of visitors in a small local museum, they just won't cope. They will have a terrible experience. So it's also about managing the expectations. And a site that is designed to host 25,000 visitors a year may never be able to cope with 500,000 visitors a year. So promising to yourself and to others that you can do that, it's counterproductive, because there is the risk of mass tourism and the threat of increasing bad social behavior, the threat of damaging the site permanently. And then you have the compatible tourism core is that they need to work together, the local infrastructure, the local sites, and mass tourism and the local legislation. They're all interlinked to one another. They all work to control mass tourism, because mass tourism can be good, but it can also be a massive threat. And that's why the arrow is going down this way. The local legislation supports local sites to be run effectively and in line with the legislation. And the local infrastructures help manage the site, but also get the tourists in a sustainable way. Ideally, I would love to have less cars coming to the car park. Yes, I will make less money from car parking, but it is more environmentally friendly to have a bus stop within the car park, so everybody can access it without having to worry, oh, I don't have a driving license, I can't come and visit with you. Looking in the future to create a bus stop inside, and we need to involve the local infrastructure, so the council, and we need to make sure that the local legislation allows that to happen, so that we can have an increased tourism. It will never be mass tourism like the British Museum, 17,000 visitors a day, but it would enable us to get benefits from a larger number of visitors without having an impact on the environment. This is the scheme that I created to show what I mean by working in a network. So you got a major site. Witley Court is not a major site. Our major site is called Kenworth Castle, which is about an hour away. Now, anybody that joins at Kenworth Castle, an hour away from us, will be encouraged to come to us, which we are a minor site. And other people are also encouraged through marketing and advertisement, and they are within a local transport distance. they could potentially go from Kenworth by bus or train to Birmingham, get the train to Kidderminster, and then eventually a bus to us, and then a little bit of a walk. But it's still doable. But otherwise, they can take the car. There is a way and mean. Any minor site will promote the major site, but also the other satellite sites, the minor ones. And that's how we build a network of places and how we make them relevant, and we encourage other people to see them. And India has got so much potential in terms of heritage that, you know, I wish one day I'll be able to come and see, because I haven't had the privilege and the honor to visit your country, but I look forward to the day when I can come over and explore it, because I know you can do these with closed eyes and it will be so effective. And you're already doing it, because I know you got network sites already working. But can you imagine if you had one organization for the entirety of India, just like we're trying in England, but there is already 3 major organizations running different sites. If they were all in one, we would be able to be more effective in promoting and supporting heritage with other people. I don't know if you're going to hear it, but this is a video of how we promote English heritage, and our main site. Of all the 400 sites, this is the one that probably a lot of people around the world know about, and it's Stonehenge. So I'm going to try to see if you can see, and I suppose you can see it, but you may not hear it. I hope you will, but it's just a bit of music. Right, that's just to give you an idea of what marketing can be. This is about 2 years old, but it's still relevant, and it helps us promote and engage with visitors and prospective visitors, as we call them, those that haven't yet come. I've reached the end of today, but I will look forward to the next one, where I will bring a lot of exercises that we can do together, and it will be nice to share into breakout rooms the results and trying to see how do you react to the problem that I dealt with on site. So I use personal experiences, and I would like to see how everybody feels and what solution you come up with, because I found a solution, fine, but there may be 10 different ones.
Very much, Dr. Vijay. It was really very interesting that you have talked about all the details about the management. We talk about heritage. We talk about the sites. We go and visit the site. Even I have been to Edinburgh and have been to the castle, not to the Court and Gardens, but Stonehenge, of course, I have been to. And actually, when we look at them and we look at the beauty, we think about the history, but we don't think about the people like you who are actually behind the management of the whole thing, and the things are running. And it was really wonderful to get all the details that you have shared with us about the management of the whole thing. And
Yeah,
I just very much hope that you will come to India.
I
And
look forward.
yes, I welcome you, but I don't know if I can make it anymore to possible, because I'm retired, you know. So, but thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank you. If you got any questions or emails, please, you can, Asmita, you please share my email with the participants. I'll be happy to answer any question. I just need to unfortunately head back to the site, because we're about to start closing, and it's the last wave of visitors we're gonna get now.
That's your time. Over to you.
Yes. Okay, okay. So I think I'll just drop in the email ID of our speaker today. And thank you so much, madam. And thank you, Edoardo, for the session.
Yeah. I'm just writing my email in the chat if so people can see it. There we go.
And just quickly, just few words of vote of thanks by Dr. Debashish. Dr. Debashish Mondal. Sir, if you could just give the vote of thanks because our speaker has to head back to his work.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Hi, you are unmute.
Thank you, Ashmita. It is my pleasure to deliver the final vote of thanks. And me, Dr. Devashish Kumar Mondol, on behalf of the SHAM, I express my gratitude and also big thanks to the speaker, Dr. Edoardo Bedin. Who is a practitioner of heritage management, museum management, as well as the field archaeology. And all of we know that he is famous for his great work of the long walk of 50 miles to visit the all heritage sites of Scotland and the fundraising activity for the preservation of these heritage buildings of Scotland. And today we became very much enriched from your lecture to how you were raising the funds for the heritage management for our future generation, as well as the what are the problem, what are the prospects, and some issues are there about the heritage management or management of the ancient building. That types of problems are also facing in India, and also we are living in the eastern part of our country, and we are living in the Kolkata, the famous city. And here there is also so many British buildings and where so many colonial buildings are there in Kolkata and in suburban areas. And there are so many problems. We are facing so much problems for this management of this heritage building. So I think that today's lecture will reach with lots give lots of pathways for us for this management of the heritage building for the future generation. And many thanks to sir. We really become enriched from your lecture. And thanks to the president, Professor Durga Basu. Thanks to Professor Ranjana Rai, Emeritus Professor. Thanks to other executive members, listeners, students, and researchers who are doing the heritage management at present. So thanks to all of you for wonderful lectures, for listening the wonderful lecture. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we will be back with the second series of the workshop very soon in the month of September, hopefully. And those who have joined us today will be getting their e-certificates also very soon over email. Thank you so much. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Eduardo.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Devashish.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Good night. Good night. Good night.
Good night.